Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news mashup video today, starting with the split between Dillian Whyte and Mark Tibbs, with seconds out the YouTube channel revealing that legal concerns led it to taking down a video which featured Mark Tibbs explaining the split with Whyte. And in that interview, as well as one done with IFL TV, which was also taken down, Tibbs went on to explain that a lawyer had contacted him and essentially on behalf of Dillian Whyte informed him he was being let go. Tibbs went on to say there'd been very little communication. He hadn't sort of had any hand in that pre-prepared statement Dillian Whyte had published on social media explaining the split, and he was still prepared to train Whyte and had been willing to go out to Portugal. So most of it seemed relatively non-controversial, which led fans to speculate why the two interviews had been taken down, given the comments didn't seem to be too derogatory or anything like that towards Whyte, although clearly contradicting Whyte's version of events that he'd put out in public. So Danny Flexen of Seconds Out, responding to someone who had commented on a thread on my Twitter feed, he asked Danny Flexen, "I understand that Kugan Cassius is friend with Dillian Whyte and that's why he removed the video, but how he convinced you to remove it also?" Danny Flexen of Seconds Out responded, "Nothing to do with friendship. We removed the video due to legal concerns." And I asked him the question, "Are you at liberty to explain what those legal concerns were?" And he responded with a very brief no, clearly not wanting to get into the issue. So I think people had sort of speculated that Whyte or his team had asked the respective YouTube channels based on the friendship and the sort of access that Whyte has with those channels for the interviews to be taken down. But it's clear, at least in the Seconds Out example, that legal concerns, and so a lawyer must have been in touch with them to talk about that video coming down. For what reason, we don't know. It's clearly that this split is not as amicable as it had originally been portrayed by the likes of Sky Sports, and there's more going on here, and that's more on both sides. We don't really know any of the detail, and we probably never will get the full story. And with these two videos having been taken down, and Tibbs revealing he was fired by Whyte's lawyer, it has turned into a bit of a PR disaster for Dillian Whyte, and it's because they don't clearly want to release too much detail, either side, because Tibbs has been relatively economical with what he said, probably because legal concerns may come into it if he says too much more. Obviously, this doesn't look good. It's quite messy, more messier than obviously we were led to believe initially. Will we get the full story? Unlikely. But someone who was backing Mark Tibbs in public is trainer Peter Fury. He's added Mark Tibbs on Twitter saying, "Listen to your interview, Mark. Credit to boxing, and the improvements you made are clear for everyone to see. At least boxing men and the public respect your work, sir. Top trainer and boxing family." A farmer who claimed he was offered £25,000 to lie on behalf of Tyson Fury and Hughie Fury following a failed 2015 drug test says he is no longer helping UCAD. So Martin Kerfoot earlier this year came out publicly saying he was offered the money, and that was in exchange for talking to UCAD, providing a statement saying he provided Team Fury meat, specifically boar meat, and that would account for nandrolone being in the two Fury systems. So now he has come out though, and this is speaking to the Times, saying, "I've had nothing but problems right from the beginning of this, and I don't want to get involved." So I guess this begs the question, why did he actually come out years after the fact saying this? And because at the time, earlier this year, he said he'd never got the money. So maybe he was bitter, maybe he sold his story, but obviously his credibility is in tatters because he's been lying all over the place from the get-go. Do we believe him back then, or do we believe him now? His story, he can't seem to keep it straight. But seemingly, for whatever reason, he is now not talking to UCAD, who did launch a probe into the claims. But remembering Tyson Fury had served a backdated ban in relation to that failed test incident, but the claim of bribery certainly was a serious one, and seemingly it is going to go nowhere now. Meanwhile, the IBF mandatory challenger Kubrat Pulev is looking forward to a clash with Tyson Fury after he beats Anthony Joshua. Joshua and Pulev are going to fight at some point, but their bout is yet to be scheduled. It's been postponed due to the pandemic. But his promoter, Ivalo Gotsev, co-promoter of Epic Sports and Entertainment, he says Kubrat's thinking, let them do all the planning, then let me get that Tyson Fury fight, because defeating AJ will create a great podium for a Tyson Fury showdown. He's already beaten the younger Fury. Kubrat feels he beat the better Fury. And obviously, when he says the better Fury, he's referring to Kubrat Pulev having beat Hughie Fury, Tyson's cousin, and that was in an IBF final eliminator. And Gotsev goes on to add, they need a spectacle, an epic battle, and something to take your mind off what is going around the world, so we'll give the world the opportunity to see a fight by the rules by two gladiators. The top-ranked prospect Jared Anderson has had his fight date moved up on ESPN to July the 16th. He had originally been scheduled to fight Hector Perez on July 9th, but there was an issue with Perez, and at the time, Top Rank told me it was an undisclosed medical issue, not related to COVID, and subsequently, Hector Perez's manager has told Boxing Scene there was a minor issue with his urine sample, and the fight would be rescheduled. And it was for the 21st, but now it's been pushed to the 16th. And perhaps that card on the 16th, another fight has fallen off and they needed to fill it out. But Anderson's still a young pro in his career. Hector Perez is a guy that he should be able to beat and handily enough, but it'll be good to see Anderson back in the ring. I guess one thing with this pandemic and the fights that are coming back at the moment, although a lot of these top-ranked cards have not been great, it does give us an opportunity to get a bit of a better look at some of these prospects who are fighting multiple times. Some of the bigger name fighters are sitting out for the moment, but at least we get to have a really good look at prospects like Jared Anderson, Sonny Conto, Guido Vianello on these top-ranked cards. And rounding out this heavyweight news mashup video, the 2-0 prospect David Adeleye says he would beat all of the opponents that Daniel Dubois has faced to date. So speaking to IFL TV, he says that he believes he would beat all of them, and he would beat them in a similar fashion, and that includes Nathan Gorman. He stated, Gorman and me would be a real good fight. So I do like the enthusiasm from David Adeleye. It's sort of hard to know how good he is going to be, but obviously there's a developing buzz around his name, some optimism that he's going to achieve something in the sport. He's a young heavyweight. We saw he does have heavy hands in his first couple of fights, obviously still very raw though. But this claim he could beat fellow prospect Nathan Gorman, well, Gorman is much more seasoned than Adeleye at this point. Although he didn't win against Daniel Dubois, that doesn't mean he doesn't have talent and doesn't have skills. And I think if they would have it right now, it's probably a pretty even fight. But more than likely, that fight doesn't get made at this point. I think for Gorman, it's all downside facing a guy with just 2 fights on the record, especially coming off a loss to Daniel Dubois where he didn't really fire too many shots, dominated in that one. But just because he lost to Dubois doesn't mean that Adeleye, who we haven't seen too much of, can beat him at this point. Gorman is far more seasoned than Adeleye, but I think down the line, if they're looking for an in-house fight, maybe this is a rivalry or the start of one. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.